our cootie. This is the cootie. There's the garden. Again, I've been doing our gardening. There's the Buddha. And I'm doing it here because it's windy outside, and although it doesn't look too windy right at the moment, but it's drizzly. And I'm a bit croaky, so I just want to be indoors for a bit. So I want to talk about anxiety. We're getting lots of people along who are suffering from anxiety, and we don't need to. We've all suffered from it. Every human being's probably suffered from it from some point in their lives. But what's actually happening when we're anxious? Okay, let's cut to the chase. There's one primary reason why we suffer from anxiety. Let's just go straight to it. And that is because, in about 6 or 7, maybe 8 words, and that is, you are believing your thoughts. We believe our thoughts, or the contents of our thoughts, to be real and true. Now, there are thoughts which are real and true, but the content of them isn't real. Do you get that? The content of those thoughts aren't real. The story isn't really happening. But we take them to be real and really happening. That's why we suffer anxiety. I'm going to share a couple of techniques with you as we go along in this session. So, what do I mean? Well, we have this world, don't we? We have the senses, the 5 senses, the hearing and the seeing and the feeling, etc., which are not problematic in the least. Yeah. They don't create any problems. There's the 5 senses, the unproblematic 5 senses. The mind, as we call it, is the 6th sense. This is the creative sense. It creates the wonders of life, great our works of art and cures for diseases. And yeah, this iPhone was an idea in someone's mind at some point. But also, it's double-edged. It creates suffering. It creates stories that are not really happening. And when you, me, we take those thoughts, those stories to be real, that's when, like this hand here is attention, your attention or your awareness. It disappears into the world of thought. Then that world of thought, the content of thought, becomes or feels real. Are you with me? This is so simple, but it's just habitual. We take the content of the thought, the story that's going around in the head, in the mental realm, remember it's imaginary, to be more real than this. The body, yeah? Than the wind and the rain and the sirens and the cars and the thunder, as we're getting recently. We take the realm of thought to be more real than the real world. And when we're lost in the world of thought, anything can happen, anything can pop up out of nowhere, and then we believe it. And once we start believing it, then that creates emotion. Then it feels even more real. Then we're not only lost, and then we've got all these emotions. Yeah. That's the world of anxiety. It's really quite simple when you break it down. It's believing that what your thoughts are saying is real. Now, thoughts are very, very useful. We can't exist and survive and prosper without thinking. It's a brilliant tool. But I'm only talking about the self-centered thinking. The first time I heard anything like this was one of my teachers said, there's an equation. Self-centered thinking equals suffering. And I didn't quite get it at the time. Sorry, I'm just trying to get comfortable. iPhone's not the easiest things to record on, particularly when you've got your arm out in front. I haven't quite got the setup yet. I'm normally walking. So that's the cause of suffering. The moment you enter into that mental realm, what I mean is lose yourself in the mental realm, not the mental realm itself, because that's obviously very useful. It can be usefully creative. Okay? It's when you disappear into it. You take that mental realm to be reality. Yeah. And we get hooked on it. We stick to the thoughts. The attention sticks to the thoughts. And we're just at the mercy of thought until it's ready to spit us out again. And people who I'm communicating this with on a regular basis are starting to see it. And you have to see it for yourself. I can't do it for you. Nobody could do it for me. You have to see it for yourself. And when you start to see what's actually happening, the game's up. Because there's a mechanism. And even though the content of our anxious thoughts are slightly different for everybody, the mechanism is always the same. So that's what we look at. Most of us look at the contents. We look at the mechanism. That's the way out. Hang on. The mechanism. There's a mechanism. There's like a few steps, which leads to anxiety. Now, just one or two very brief techniques, because I've gone on a bit longer than I wanted to, but it's an important theme, I think. So right now, I'd like you to think a negative thought. Make it real for 10 seconds. Might be critical or anxious or judgmental. Okay. See how even under test conditions, it can feel a little real? Right, I'd like you to do it again. And this time I'd like you to say before it, I'm having the thought, ... Do it again. Okay, do you see the difference? The first one is identifying with thought. The second one is identifying thought. So there's one word there, with, and that makes all the difference. What I'm suggesting and illustrating and trying to show people is that we can identify thought, but not identify with thought. Just four letters, one word, makes all the difference. But it's got to be irregular looking. And we look at this as many other themes too, like presence and, on what we do on these things or everything we do, we're always looking at these themes. Yeah. So it's got to be irregular looking. And then it all starts to break down and you start to feel some freedom from the tyranny of thought. So just before we leave, right now, without thinking or imagining in any way, you're not allowed to think, okay? I'd like you to be anxious. You can't, can you? You have to be lost in thinking to be anxious. There may be feelings around from something that's been flushing through the system, but without the thinking, without the labeling, they're just sensations. Okay. Gone to 10 minutes. Longest one ever. Thanks, guys. You don't need to suffer this anxiety as most of us do, as many of us do. It does need to be like this. And it's not complicated. It's absolutely simple. Doesn't need any working out. Awareness is the key. The problem of too much mind is not solved by even more mind. It's solved by coming out and seeing what's happening. You already have all the equipment you need. Okay. Bye-bye.